Okay, so we have done sort of the column using the Revit generated, the generic model adaptive stuff. And what we're going to do now is actually create the whole thing in Dynamo. So I'm going to come in and get rid of the preview of everything, I think, in here. Just get rid of that. Right click and let's hide all geometry preview. So the only thing I guess is we can sort of preview the surface, right? Because we're still going to need that guy. And actually we can kind of, I guess I'll go ahead and leave the Revit window open so you can see it creating things in there. We don't particularly need it. Let's go ahead and maximize Rhino for Dynamo for right now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm just going to do polygon, right? And there's a regular polygon here that I'm going to pick, and if I pull that out and zoom in on it, it takes a circle and then creates a polygon based on a circle. So I'm just going to right click and type in circle. You can also get these under here under the geometry, but I'm just going to do a center point and radius circle here. Pretty simple. You can see it kind of appearing there, and I'll just again right click and bring out a number slider, and let's just go ahead and change that from 100 to maybe 10, and that'll be okay, and we'll just create our first little polygon. So radius, and we were using 1.5. We'll just kind of stick with the same 1.5, and then that gets plugged into the circle, and then we need to tell it how many sides we want. So I'll just Control C, Control V this guy, and let's go down, and we'll change this step to 1, so we're whole, and change this to 7 is how many sides we were thinking we needed, although you could change that. And then we'll put that in there, and we can always get rid of the preview here, right? And if we zoom in, you'll see we've got our little polygon started. Okay, so now what we want to do is create the other two sections that we're going to use for our loft. So we're going to use the translate. So we're going to move this one and then offset it. So if I go to translate, there's a couple of different translates. You can do distance and direction, so we could just do it in the X. But what I want to do is actually use the translate that gives me the option to do X, Y, and Z, because I might want to move it in the X, Y, and Z later. Maybe not this one, but you never know. So what I'm going to do is take that polygon, plug it in, right, and then I'll take this number slider and Control C, Control V, right, and we'll just push this up in the Z. Maybe this guy goes to 50 here, so we have a little bit more room, right, and we take this guy up to, I don't know, 16 feet, right. So now we've got that guy, and then we're going to offset that, right, and if you scroll down, there's an offset curve, and you can pick the curve offset, right, and I'll just again Control C, Control V the slider and plug that into the distance. That's a little big. I'll take it down to like maybe 3 or 2 for that one, a little smaller, and so now we've got that, and then we can just take this guy, Control C, Control V, and push it forward, right, and let's go ahead and take that as the curve, and then let's go ahead and Control C, Control V here, and give it a different Z translation. Maybe we pull it up right to, as close to underneath the thing as we can, so 22. And then this one we want it to make it significantly bigger, right? So it's starting to come through the thing, so maybe somewhere around 25, right? So if we come up here and we take a look, that's getting pretty big up there, so we'll use that. and we still have a little bit of wiggle room to move it around. So come back up here. So now we've kind of got all of our curve offsets, and we can go ahead and do the loft for the straight, right? If we and we'll do a list create to get all of our curves into. So if that's our first curve, and let's just take all of this and pull it down, right? So we can get our little lines in order. I'll take all this and pull it down. That's really the third curve. So we can take our first curve and put it in, add another list, take our second curve and put it in, and add another one and put our third curve in, and then we can loft those, right? So if we pull that into the loft, and then let's go down, you can see it's lofting it, but we haven't done the curve offset, right? The pull. So I'll come back here, and I'm just going to copy this guy, right? So I'll copy these guys and pull them down here, right? And we can keep the surface connection because it's the same surface that we're using from the other one, so that's fine. But we want to replace the curve with that, and if we preview this, you should see that curve, right, occurring on the top of that. And then we'll just pull this guy out a little further, right? And for our last item, we'll push that guy in, right? And so now, if we take a look underneath there, now we have that. And if we kind of keep it that way, go back to here, then we can come in, and if we want to, we can come in and start sort of playing around with, you know, sliding the X, Y, and Z around. So if I come in here and plug this into the Y translation, you're going to see that shift, and then if I really start to push it, right, it's moving it actually off of the thing. But you can start to kind of play around with, let's go ahead and pull this guy over maybe to the last one, and we'll do a Y translation here, right? And you can start to see that guy, once it gets off of the plane, it gets a little, right, it gets a little wonky. If we come in, I wonder if it'll let me do a minimum. Let's do a -50 here, right? So now I can kind of push it either way. Right now it goes off. When it gets off of the curve, it gets a little wonky. But you can kind of see it starting to push and pull. So you can start to move those guys around. You might have to separate them out a little bit, but that should, you know, get it done. I'll do one more thing where I come back and put beams on the edges. So if you wanted to do something other than open, we'll do that.